Is your literature review tearing your hair out? Hey there, I'm Dr. Kenya Wong and I supervise master's research at 2 UK universities, and I also run a business supporting PhD students on their research. As an academic myself, I struggle with the thought of using AI within academia for a while. My current position is that AI is here to stay, and as researchers and academics, we need to learn how to harness the capabilities of AI to support our research work, but also at the same time not to cheapen the integrity of our research degrees or violate the sanctity of academia. So as a master's supervisor, I have thought of some ways for students to make use of AI in their dissertation without compromising the integrity of their research work and risking any academic offense. In this video, we will not be looking at using AI to help you write or paraphrase your writing, because there will always be an inherent risk with doing something like that. As a supervisor, I believe that it takes away a lot of key academic writing skills from you as a student as well. We will be looking at how AI can help you simplify and speed up your research. In this context, we will be looking at a literature review dissertation, and at the end of the day, you can still be proud of your work and whatever that you have produced as well. The steps that we're looking at are incredibly simple, and there is no need for any high-level manipulation of AI or any subscription to any paid tools. The issue with a lot of AI tools is that it can be quite tricky to incorporate within your literature review, particularly when you are trying to follow well laid out methodologies and approaches to literature reviewing. For example, a systematic review or a scoping review or a critical interpretive synthesis. Breaking away from the research process as stipulated by these methods also mean that you are no longer applying the methods as stipulated, which will then affect the rigor and the systematicness of your review. So in this video, I will follow a systematic search for literature quite similar to a systematic review, which a lot of PhD and master's students will be using in your own research. I will focus on the problems that the students that I supervise typically face, and I will also look into how AI can help you through these different steps without having to change the way you look at literature completely or the way you search and select literature. So at the end of the day, you can still say that you have followed the required research method for the review of your literature. You are probably wondering whether or not these steps I'm talking about are going to work for your field of research, and the answer is yes. I support students who do research in a broad spectrum of fields. The key elements of research are quite similar when we are looking at literature across all of the fields, and because this method of using AI does not skip any of these steps, it only makes each step easier for you. You'll also have a lot of room to customize it to suit your needs as well. So let's get into it. This is a sticking point for many of you because you are new to the field, you are not sure where to begin reading, you are not sure where the gaps of the research are. A lot of my own students tend to get stuck in this particular stage, especially if they have not conducted a sufficiently thorough preliminary research about the topic. And later down the line in their dissertation, they find that they may potentially have to reposition the entire literature review, mostly because there is just no room for research in that area, which is a terrible drain on your limited time that you have, especially if you are a master's dissertation student. Generative AI can give you that initial boost. And in this case, we want to use AI to help start off our literature review, identify areas of interest and also areas where there is insufficient research. Just put the prompt into whichever AI tool that you are using. In this case, we're looking at ChatGPT. And be sure to narrow this down further as well. This only helps us identify gaps in the literature, which have been stated in the papers that we publish, and what it requires is a little bit more analysis. When you're doing a literature review, you are looking for what is known about the topic. You have identified boundaries of your literature review, and you just need to look at everything adjacent to this boundary. At the master's and PhD level, you're expected to understand research at the frontier. So your literature review should focus on this very narrow little section. You can go ahead to get generative AI to help you probe a little further into this particular area. Site Assistant can give you some papers to start off with over here to kickstart your preliminary research for your literature review. Your next step after this is to identify your review question using Spider, Pico, PCC, etc. and identify your review objectives. Now this step is quite unique to your own analysis of the preliminary literature searched. I find that if you solely rely on AI for this step, you get very typical and repetitive review questions, but if you combine both AI and your analysis, you typically come up with more refreshing research review questions and foci. Now that you have your review questions and objectives, you are ready to start your literature review search. Two problems over here. Number one, you have already identified your keywords and you have thought about other keywords that can potentially be searched, but you are not sure if you have covered all of them. Number two, you need to identify appropriate databases. Now to solve your problem on key terms, simply pop it into the query bar and get AI to do this all for you. And then you can confirm them all as well. If you are a health researcher looking at using PubMed or Medline, you can also get ChatGPT to give you MeSH terms as well. Now, this saves you a lot of time tracing the MeSH terms that you need, but make sure you check the MeSH terms, and I'll show you why in a bit. For the second problem, databases can also be easily identified using generative AI or ChatGPT. However, the context is very important, and AI may not grasp the context of your search very well and may suggest the wrong databases. So don't forget to provide a little bit more specificity and double check the relevance of the databases that have been suggested. So with your key terms sorted, you are looking at how to string all of these keywords up with the appropriate Boolean operators. ChatGPT actually does this quite well to a certain degree, but you must check everything once again. So this is what I got as a search string after I asked ChatGPT to give me a search string for a review question, complete with MeSH terms, Boolean operators, and additional keywords relevant to the review. And if I run the search without checking the search string, this is what I get from PubMed. There are several problems with this search string. Number one, factors, determinants, influencing factors, patient experience. These are not MeSH terms, but patient satisfaction, radiology, interventional, these are MeSH terms. Interventional radiology is not a MeSH term. Some of the wildcards here are placed in the wrong location or poorly optimized. For example, let's look at catheterization. Searching catheterization with the asterisk at the end. In PubMed, it will only include catheterization and catheterizations. To optimize the search, I will search catheter with an asterisk at the end instead, because this will give me catheter, catheters, catheterization, and catheterizations in both American and British spelling as well. So what can we do about these problems? Now that ChatGPT has given me a search string to work on, I can refine this a lot better, like so. First, I will break it up into respective key terms so that it's easier to read. Then remove the invalid MeSH terms after I've checked them and fix the terms one by one. Personally, as a marker, I prefer to see search strings in this format. I find that brackets make the search string quite incomprehensible, and so this is how I fix it all. And this is what it looks like before and after. For students who are new to conducting a literature review, using AI is a great way to help you get started with putting your search string and the databases together, but you really do need to check it properly. As a marker, sometimes I will copy and paste a student's search string and search term and pop them into the databases to check the student's work when I mark the dissertations. Errors become quite obvious when we run the searches because the databases themselves can tell us if the terms are invalid. If you're an experienced researcher, I would say it's faster to do your search string manually, to be honest. So now that we've done our search, we need to start filtering our papers. The issues that you face here are going to be issues around organization and prioritizing papers. If you only have to screen and filter 30 papers, this is something that might not be too much of a problem, but it's quite likely that you're looking at papers somewhere in the hundreds. As you review papers, you are going to want to keep a record of the relevant papers and the irrelevant papers especially, because you might eventually find them to be relevant later when you start to write the background chapter or the discussions. The other issue is about priority. If you review the papers in the order that they appear on the databases, you may only find your first relevant paper after you have reviewed about 100 papers, and the next relevant paper might be after another 200 papers. Or it also might be a case where out of 6,000 papers in your search results, only 5% of these papers are relevant to your review to begin with. So it may not be feasible to filter 5,900 plus papers within the time of your dissertation or even your PhD. This is time consuming and we want to get to the relevant papers as quickly as we can. What if there is a way for us to get to those relevant papers very quickly and also have some sort of record and organization system for the papers that we deem as relevant and irrelevant? So this is where AS Review or As Review comes in. AS Review is an open source AI program that helps researchers sort out relevant and irrelevant papers by machine learning, while still giving you full control of the decision-making process. AS Review presents you the papers that you have selected one by one. You essentially click relevant or not relevant. As you do this, programs start to learn which papers are more likely to be relevant and prioritizes them within the order of the paper in which it presents to you. Irrelevant papers are pushed down the order, while potentially relevant papers are pushed all the way up, which also means that you are less likely to miss relevant papers within the stack of papers you need to filter. First, download the CSV or the RIS file for your search results. It should look something like this, where you have the DOI numbers for easy reference later in AS Review. Then import this file onto AS Review. Once you are done, you will have to warm up the program by filtering at least one relevant and one irrelevant paper. So here I'm going to do a random sample of 5 from the stack of papers in my search results. Then we're going to start reviewing the whole stack of papers with our AI assistant. You don't have to do it all at once. You can always return to it at a later date as well. This is a great feature when you have hundreds of papers to filter and you can't possibly do it all within one sitting. Now, once you're done, go to History and see which papers were deemed relevant and irrelevant. You can export the files here and download the required documents separately. You can find a similar function in Covidence, but most students will not have access to Covidence even via your university because it's quite an expensive tool as well. But if you're a PhD student, you may be able to request access via your university. Now, AS Review has existed since 2021, and there are published journals to show how other researchers have made use of AS Review in their own systematic review. And this is particularly helpful for you dissertation students because this will help you justify your use of AI programs within your systematic review. In this paper, the author used AS Review to sift through the records as I've shown you. And there is one interesting criteria that they have set prior to the review, and that is the stopping criteria. This stopping criteria is the point where the researchers say that they have decided to stop filtering the stack of papers. Because of the way AS Review prioritizes relevant papers up on top, you're going to get to a point where you find that consecutively there are no more relevant papers. So in this particular example, the researchers decided that once they reach a point where consecutively for 100 papers, they have all been deemed irrelevant, That's where they draw the line on stopping. You can find a paper in the description below. The paper also identifies 7 other systematic reviews that have used AS review in their systematic review process if you need more justification for this in your writing. Now, if you find the video useful and you would like more content like this, go click the like and subscribe button for more videos about higher education and academia. Prior to this step, you would have already read all of your selected papers. Data extraction and critical appraisal can be quite time consuming because you need to return to those papers multiple times to look for the information that you need. The problem with this is that there's a great degree of human error where you can potentially make a lot of mistakes when referring to the paper and also potentially miss out important details that you need. So we want a way for all of the important information that we need to be presented appropriately such that we can compare them between the studies. We also need an AI system that is capable of pulling out specific information from these papers that is relevant to your review interest. For example, barriers and facilitators, factors, outcome measures used, etc. So here we can use Elicit AI to help us extract data from the papers that we need. Now, there are 2 ways to go about it. First, you read all of the papers, do your data extraction manually, and then use AI to help check your work. Or you can let AI do the job first, pull out the information and data that you need, then go in and read and confirm the information that has been extracted. Either way you do this, you'll still need to double check your work and make sure that you're familiar with the papers yourself, because you do need to conduct your own analysis later, and you cannot analyze if you do not know enough about these papers. So boot up Elicit AI, upload your papers, select the papers you want to extract the data from, add the type of data you want to extract, you can also add custom columns as well by clicking this and then telling the AI what you actually want to pull out from the paper. You can also pull out information in relation to critical appraisal that you will need to do within your systematic review as well. Now, if we look at the wider literature on the use of AI in systematic reviews that have already been published, we see that the use of AI tends to be limited to the searching, the selection, and also the data extraction processes of the systematic review. We do not really see evidence about the use of AI in the analysis stages or even in the writing stages. What this tells me is that within the field of research, while there is some level of acceptability of the use of AI in the earlier stages of a systematic review or literature review in terms of searching, selecting, and extracting data, when it comes to analysis, synthesis, and writing, researchers are similarly hesitant about how it impacts the integrity of their own work, especially when it is going to go into publication later. Now, there are far too many academic integrity traps for me to recommend the use of AI in the writing or the analysis process of your dissertations and in your PhD as well. As a marker of a dissertation, I'll find it very difficult to award marks if a student were to submit a piece of work and knowingly declares the use of AI in the analysis process, because the question that runs through my head as a marker is, to what extent is this the student's work? Currently, within our marking rubrics, there is no consideration of how to award marks for students who have applied the use of AI, and how do we determine the level of criticality, knowledge, and understanding of research methodology if a student were to declare something like that. Perhaps this may change in the future, and there's going to be a lot of room for us to revisit this topic. Now, if you're a new PhD student, go to this video for more information on how to get started with your PhD. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!